The judge's gavel strikes the dark wooden table, and the sound echoes in my bones like an echo of all the years I've lived in silence. Here I am, Eleanor Vance, 67 years old, sitting in this cold courtroom with my wrinkled hands clutching a yellow envelope I've kept for 13 years. My heart pounds so hard, I'm afraid everyone can hear it. Across from me is my daughter, Valerie, in her elegant suit and with her red-tied lawyer pointing at me as if I'm a criminal. Her eyes burn with a rage I don't understand, or perhaps understand all too well. Beside her, Attorney Mark Sullivan reviews some papers with the confidence of someone who believes they have the truth on their side. "Your Honor," Valerie says, her voice trembling but firm, "my mother has had my children for 13 years without my consent. This constitutes parental kidnapping. I never authorized her to take them." Her words sting like sharp daggers. Kidnapping. That word pierces my chest and lodges deep where I keep all my motherly pains. I look back and see my 3 grandchildren, Arthur, 20, Emily, 18, and Andrea, 16, sitting in the 3rd row. Their faces are pale, confused, as if they're watching a movie they don't understand. Judge Theodore Mason, a man with gray hair and tired eyes, observes me over his glasses. "Mrs. Vance, what do you have to say to these accusations?" My fingers squeeze the envelope. Inside are the proofs of a truth I've held for years, protecting it like a treasure or a wound that can't heal. "Your Honor," I say, my voice hoarse, "I didn't kidnap anyone. I simply raised the children my daughter abandoned on my doorstep." "That's a lie!" Valerie shouts, standing up. "I never abandoned them. I had mental health issues. I needed temporary help." Her lawyer calms her with a hand gesture. "Your Honor, my client was hospitalized for severe postpartum depression. She needed urgent medical treatment. Mrs. Vance took advantage of that vulnerability to keep the children and alienate them from their biological mother." I feel the courtroom fill with whispers. Some people in the audience nod as if they've already decided who the victim in this story is. But I know the truth. I've lived it day after day for 13 years. Early mornings, fevers, homework, and hugs when they cried, asking for their mom. "Mrs. Vance," the judge says in a softer tone, "I understand that caring for your grandchildren must have been difficult, but if the biological mother is requesting custody—" "With all due respect, Your Honor," I interrupt, my voice coming out firmer than I expected, "there are things this court needs to know before making any decision." I raise the yellow envelope and hold it high. It's a simple gesture, but I see Valerie's eyes widen with what looks like fear. "Here, I have documents that will completely change this conversation." The judge leans forward. "What kind of documents?" "Proof of what really happened 13 years ago. Proof of why my daughter is here today, and it's not from maternal love." My voice trembles slightly, not from fear, but from an emotion I can't name. Valerie turns pale. "Mom, please don't do this." "Do what, daughter? Tell the truth?" Attorney Mark Sullivan clears his throat. "Your Honor, Mrs. Vance is trying to divert attention from the main issue. Documents from the past don't change the fact that my client has legal rights to her children." "On the contrary," I say, looking directly into my daughter's eyes, "these documents explain exactly why we are here today. They explain why, after 13 years of absolute silence, of not sending a single dollar for her children's expenses, of not even calling it Christmas, my daughter suddenly appears with a lawyer." The silence in the room is heavy, like the air before a storm. I can hear my heart pounding, the rustle of papers the lawyer nervously shuffles, the ragged breathing of my grandchildren behind me. The judge looks at me intently. "Mrs. Vance, are you suggesting there are hidden motives in this lawsuit?" "I'm not suggesting anything, Your Honor. I'm stating that there are." My eyes meet Valerie's, and I see in them the same expression she had as a child when I caught her in mischief. And it's all documented here. "Mom," Valerie whispers, "please think about what you're doing." "I've had 13 years to think," I reply. 13 years of sleepless nights when Arthur had a fever. 13 years of school meetings where I was the only family member present. 13 years waiting for a call from you that never came. Judge Mason gently taps his gavel. Mrs. Vance, are you willing to present these documents as evidence in this case? I look at the envelope in my hands. Inside are the letters Valerie wrote to me, the photos I kept, the receipts I saved, and something else. Something even my grandchildren don't know I have. Something that will change everything. Yes, Your Honor, I am ready. The judge nods and pauses to review his agenda. Very well, Mrs. Vance, but before examining these documents, I would like to hear your full account of the facts. Tell us what happened 13 years ago. I close my eyes for a moment and transport myself back to that day that changed my life forever. It was a rainy Tuesday in October. I was in my small kitchen preparing chamomile tea to calm my nerves after a doctor's appointment, where my arthritis had been confirmed to be worsening. Then I heard the knocks on the door. It was near noon. I begin feeling my voice soften with the memory. Valerie appeared at my door with the 3 children. Arthur was 7 years old, Emily 5, and Andrea barely 3. They were dirty, their clothes wrinkled, and the little ones were crying from hunger. I look over at my grandchildren. Arthur gives me a sad smile, as if remembering fragments of that day. Emily's eyes are glassy, and Andrea, my little Andrea, hugs herself as she did when she was a scared child. My daughter entered my house like a hurricane, I continue. She carried a plastic bag with some of the children's clothes, all jumbled, nothing clean. She told me, "Mom, I need you to keep them for a while. It will only be a few weeks until I sort out my problems." Valerie lowers her gaze. Her lawyer whispers something in her ear, but she doesn't respond. I know she remembers that day as clearly as I do. I asked her what problems, if she needed financial help, if something had happened with the children's father, but she just kept repeating that she would be back soon. She gave each of them a quick kiss and left. The children ran to the window shouting, "Mommy! Mommy!" but she had already gotten into a taxi and was gone. The silence in the room is absolute. I can feel people's breathing slow, deepen, as if they are holding something in. That night, Arthur asked me when his mom was coming back. I told him soon. Andrea cried because she wanted her teddy bear that had been left at Valerie's house. Emily, my sweet Emily, helped me prepare dinner with her little hands as if she understood that it was now my responsibility to keep everyone together. My voice breaks a little, and I take a sip of water from the glass the court officer offers me. Days passed, then weeks. I didn't know where Valerie lived because she had moved. I had no phone to reach her. The children asked about her every day. Arthur started wetting the bed at night. Emily stopped talking for almost a month, and Andrea, my little Andrea, developed a cough that wouldn't go away. I watch Valerie shift uncomfortably in her chair. Her hands tremble slightly as she fiddles with a ring on her finger. I decided to enroll them in the school near my house. I needed their documents, their birth certificates. I went to Valerie's old address, and the neighbors told me she had left the apartment without paying 3 months' rent. The landlady handed me a box of things my daughter had left behind, including some of the children's papers. Judge Mason takes some notes. "Did you try to report the situation to the authorities?" "Your Honor, I thought it was temporary. Valerie had had problems before, but she had never completely abandoned her children. I believed she would return. Besides, what was I going to say? That my daughter had left her children with me and wasn't coming back? At that moment, there was no crime. It was a mother who had left her children with their grandmother." I pause and look directly at Valerie. But months passed, then years. Arthur turned 8, and he asked if he could invite his mom to his party. I told him we would try to find her. Emily started 1st grade, and when the teacher asked about her parents, she pointed to me and said, "This is my mom, Eleanor." Tears threaten to fall, but I hold them back. It's not time to cry, it's time to remember. Expenses multiplied. My pension barely covered me alone, and suddenly I had to feed, clothe, and educate 3 children. I sold some jewelry I had saved. I took a job cleaning houses on weekends. A neighbor, Mrs. Alma Jensen, helped me by watching the little ones when I went to work. The judge looks up, hearing the name Jensen. "Any relation to me?" "She's my sister, Your Honor," I reply. and she can testify about everything we went through those first few years." Valerie and her lawyer exchange worried glances. They hadn't expected this. When Andrea turned 5, we had a crisis. She got pneumonia, and we had to hospitalize her. The doctors asked for health insurance, parental authorization, documents I didn't have. That's when I decided to go through the legal process to obtain temporary guardianship of the children. My voice grows firmer. I hired a lawyer with the few savings I had left. It cost me $800 I didn't have, but it was necessary. The lawyer tried to locate Valerie to notify her about the guardianship process. We published notices in the newspaper as required by law. No one responded. "Did you obtain legal guardianship?" the judge asks. "Yes, Your Honor. 10 years ago, this very court granted me legal guardianship of my 3 grandchildren. I have all the documents. For 3 years, the law required us to continue searching for the biological mother. She never appeared, never called, never sent a single dollar." Valerie stands up abruptly. "I was sick. I had depression. I couldn't take care of them in that state." "Please sit down," the judge orders firmly. Then he looks at me. "Continue, Mrs. Vance." "The children grew up with me. Arthur graduated from high school with honors. Emily won poetry contests. Andrea learned to play guitar and formed a band at school. They went to therapy when they needed it. I took them to the doctor for vaccinations, to all their school events. I celebrated every birthday, every achievement, every important moment of their lives." I look at my grandchildren and see Arthur nod with tears in his eyes. "I never lied to them about their mother. I always told them she loved them, but couldn't take care of them at that time. I showed them pictures of her when they were babies. I saved every drawing they made for her, hoping she would return." "And they never had contact with her during all these years?" the judge asks. "Not once, Your Honor, until 2 months ago, when she appeared at my door with her lawyer and a custody demand." The judge leans forward. 2 months? And what changed after 13 years of total absence?" I smile slightly, because here comes the part Valerie doesn't want known. I raise the yellow envelope. "That answer, Your Honor, is in these documents." Judge Theodore Mason extends his hand toward me. "Mrs. Vance, please approach and present the documents you mentioned." I stand up slowly, feeling my knees protest with arthritis, but my determination is stronger than any physical pain. I walk toward the stand with the yellow envelope clutched to my chest. I can hear Valerie's nervous heels clicking against the wooden floor. "Your Honor," Attorney Mark Sullivan says, standing up, "I request that any document presented be examined by the defense before being admitted as evidence." "Of course," the judge replies. "Mrs. Vance, hand the documents to the clerk to be reviewed by both parties." I open the envelope carefully, as if it were a treasure chest I'd protected for years. My fingers tremble slightly, not from fear, but from the emotion that the truth is finally coming to light. Inside are photographs, handwritten letters, receipts, and some folded papers that form the heart of this story. "Let's start with this," I say, pulling out a packet of photographs tied with a red ribbon. These are photos I took the day Valerie left the children with me. The clerk takes the photographs and passes them to the judge, who examines them one by one. His expression gradually changes, becoming more serious. "Describe what we see in these images, Mrs. Vance." The first photo shows Arthur in dirty, torn clothes. You can see his shoes have holes in the soles. The second is of Emily, who had dried food marks on her face and tangled hair. The third is of Andrea, my little Andrea, who was wearing a diaper that clearly hadn't been changed in hours. Valerie covers her face with her hands. Her lawyer whispers something to her, but she shakes her head repeatedly. "Your Honor," I continue, "I took these photos because I wanted to document the condition in which the children arrived at my home, not with the intention of using them against her, but because a nurse neighbor advised me that it was important to keep a record of everything." The judge passes the photos to Valerie's lawyer, who quickly reviews them and shows them to his client. I see my daughter close her eyes tightly, as if trying to erase those memories. "Now," I say, pulling out a second group of documents, "these are the letters Valerie wrote to me during the first 6 months after leaving the children." The judge takes the letters and immediately notices the handwritten script. "These are written in your daughter's own hand?" "Yes, Your Honor. I'd recognize her handwriting anywhere." I look at Valerie. "Tell the judge what those letters said, daughter." Valerie remains silent, but her lawyer takes the letters and begins to read them. His expression changes dramatically as he reads. "Your Honor," I say with a clear voice, "in the first letter, dated 3 weeks after she left the children, Valerie wrote to me that she had met a man named Javier Dawson and that she was moving with him to another city. She asked me to take care of the children a little longer because her new partner didn't want immediate family responsibilities." The silence in the room is so profound that you could hear a pin drop. All eyes are fixed on Valerie, who has begun to cry silently. "In the second letter," I continue, "she informed me that she was pregnant with Javier's child and that she couldn't return for the children because he had threatened to leave her if she brought burdens from the past into their new life." "Pregnant?" the judge asks with surprise. "Yes, Your Honor. My daughter had another child with Javier Dawson, a boy who is now 12 years old and lives with them, a child she could raise because it was convenient for her new relationship." Arthur, Emily, and Andrea exchange looks of shock from their seats. This information is new to them. I never told them they had a younger brother because I didn't want to hurt them more than they already were. In the third letter, my voice grows harder. Valerie asked me to sign some papers officially renouncing any claim to her so she could start a new life without legal complications. She offered me $500 for the expenses I had incurred with her children up to that point. Attorney Mark Sullivan is pale. This information was clearly not part of the version his client had told him. "And you signed those papers?" the judge asks. "No, Your Honor. I wrote back telling her I didn't want her money, but if she really wanted to disappear from our lives, she should do it completely. I told her not to contact us again until she was truly ready to be a mother." I pull another document from the envelope. This is her response to my letter, the last communication we had in 13 years. The judge reads the document, and his expression hardens noticeably. "Mrs. Vance, can you read aloud what this letter says?" I take the paper with trembling hands, but my voice comes out firm and clear. "Mom, it's fine. I won't bother you anymore. Take good care of the children because I have my own family now. If anyone ever asks, tell them their mom had to go far away for work. I don't want them to suffer anymore. Sincerely, Valerie." Tears stream down my grandchildren's cheeks. Arthur rises from his seat as if to approach me, but Emily stops him, taking his arm. "Your Honor," I say, putting the letter away, "for 13 years I respected that decision. I never looked for my daughter. I never tried to contact her. I raised her children with love, with the few resources I had, hoping that someday she would mature and return for the right reasons." "And why do you believe she has returned now?" the judge asks. I smile sadly as I pull the last document from the envelope. "Because 3 months ago, Your Honor, my brother Arthur Vance, Valerie's uncle who lived in Texas and had no children, passed away." The judge leans forward with renewed interest. "And what does that have to do with this case?" "My brother, Your Honor, left a significant inheritance to each of his grandchildren, $50,000 in total for Arthur, Emily, and Andrea, respectively." Valerie sobs louder, and her lawyer seems to be considering abandoning the case. "But the inheritance," I continue with a firm voice, "can only be claimed by the children if they are under the custody of a direct relative, meaning their mother or their grandmother. And I, as their current legal guardian, had already initiated the procedures for them to access that money when they came of age." The judge looks at me intently. "Are you suggesting that Mrs. Valerie Vance returned solely to gain access to her children's inheritance?" I pull the final paper from the envelope. It's a copy of a legal document that was difficult to obtain. "Your Honor, this is a private report I commissioned about my daughter's activities in recent months. It shows that exactly 2.5 months ago, she hired the services of attorney Mark Sullivan and began investigating my brother's inheritance." Valerie's lawyer stands up abruptly. "Objection! That investigation is private and illegal." "It's completely legal," I reply calmly. I hired a licensed private investigator after my daughter suddenly appeared at my door with legal threats. I had every right to protect my grandchildren. The judge taps his gavel. Order in the court. He looks at me with an expression that mixes respect and curiosity. Mrs. Vance, is there anything else in that envelope the court should know? I look at the envelope, which now feels much lighter, but I know it still holds the most important secret of all. Yes, Your Honor. There's something else, something even my grandchildren don't know yet. Judge Theodore Mason adjusts his glasses and looks at me with an intensity he hadn't shown before. Mrs. Vance, what else does that envelope contain that you consider relevant to this case? My fingers search for the last document, hidden at the bottom of the yellow envelope. It's a sheet, folded several times, yellowed with time, but containing the most important words of this story. However, before revealing it, I know there's something I must do. Your Honor, before showing this last document, I would like the court to hear directly from my grandchildren. I believe it's only fair that they express their own opinion about this situation. Valerie sits up in her seat with hope in her eyes. Her lawyer, Mark Sullivan, nods quickly. Your Honor, my client agrees. The minors have the right to express their preferences. The judge considers the request. Very well, Arthur Vance. Please approach the stand. My eldest grandson rises slowly. At 20 years old, Arthur is a tall, slender young man with his grandfather's intelligent eyes and the sensitivity he inherited from our family. He walks to the stand with measured steps, as if each movement requires conscious decision. Arthur, the judge says in a gentle voice, I understand this situation must be very difficult for you. I want you to know that you can speak freely. Do you remember your biological mother? Arthur swallows and glances briefly at Valerie before answering. Yes, Your Honor, I have some vague memories. I remember there was a lot of confusion at home. I remember that sometimes there wasn't food and that my grandma Eleanor would show up with bags from the grocery store. I remember the day we arrived at her house and she bathed us, gave us clean clothes, and made us chicken soup. And how do you feel about your mother's absence during these years? Arthur closes his eyes for a moment. Your Honor, for a long time I was angry. I didn't understand why my mom didn't come back. My school friends had parents who picked them up, who went to their soccer games, who helped them with homework. I had my grandma Eleanor, who worked 2 jobs to support us and still never missed a school meeting. I watch Valerie cry silently, but Arthur continues with a maturity that breaks my heart. When I turned 15, I stopped being angry. I understood that my grandma had sacrificed her peace of mind, her health, and her savings for us. I understood that she had no obligation to raise us, but she did it because she loves us. And now that your biological mother has returned requesting custody, how do you feel? Arthur looks directly at Valerie. Mom, if I can call you that, I'm glad to know you're doing well. I'm glad to know you were able to overcome your problems, but I can't pretend these 13 years didn't happen. I can't pretend it doesn't hurt to know you formed another family while we grew up, wondering what we had done wrong. The silence in the room is absolute. Valerie sobs louder. Where would you like to live, Arthur? The judge asks. Your Honor, I'm already of legal age. I can legally make my own decisions, but if my answer can help protect my younger sisters, then the answer is clear. I want to stay with my grandma Eleanor. She's the one who raised us, who loves us unconditionally, who never abandoned us. Arthur returns to his seat, and the judge calls Emily. My 18-year-old granddaughter walks to the stand with the grace that has always characterized her, but I can see the tension in her shoulders. Emily, you are also of legal age. What is your perspective on this situation? Emily takes a deep breath before speaking. Your Honor, I have some clearer memories than Arthur, because I was a little older when we came to live with my grandma. I remember my biological mom cried a lot. I remember that sometimes she would stay in bed all day, and we had to take care of ourselves. Valerie shouts from her seat. I was sick. I had postpartum depression. The judge silences her with a stern look. Please allow the young lady to finish. Emily continues, I understand you were sick, Mom, but I also remember the day we arrived at Grandma Eleanor's house. For the first time in a long time, someone asked us if we had eaten. Someone read us stories before bed. Someone told us everything would be okay. Tears run down my cheeks as I listen to my granddaughter's words. Grandma Eleanor took us to the psychologist when we had nightmares. She enrolled us in extracurricular activities so we wouldn't feel different from other children. When I was 14 and was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes, she learned about nutrition, about glucose measurement, about everything she needed to take care of me. The judge takes notes as Emily speaks. And regarding staying with your biological mother or your grandmother? Your Honor, my biological mom is a stranger to me. I know she shares my blood, but my Grandma Eleanor shared my childhood, my adolescence, my fears, and my dreams. The decision is easy. Finally, the judge calls Andrea. My youngest granddaughter, 16, approaches the stand with the determination that has always characterized her. She is the most physically similar to me, but she has a rebellious spirit that reminds me of Valerie when she was young. Andrea, you are a minor, but your opinion is very important to the court. What do you remember about your life before coming to live with your grandmother? Andrea looks at Valerie with an expression I can't decipher. Your Honor, I was very little, but I remember things. I remember being hungry. I remember crying and no one coming. I remember the smell of the house where we lived, a smell of sadness and abandonment. Valerie folds in on herself as if her youngest daughter's words were physical blows. But I also remember, Andrea continues, the first day at Grandma Eleanor's house. I remember she gave me a warm bath and put me in clean pajamas that smelled like fabric softener. I remember she made me warm milk with honey before bed and sang me a lullaby. Would you like to get to know your biological mother better? The judge asks. Andrea thinks for a moment. Your Honor, I'm not going to lie. I'm curious to meet the woman who gave me life, but I'm also scared. Scared that she'll leave again. Scared that her promises are like the ones she made 13 years ago. And where do you feel safest? With my Grandma Eleanor, Your Honor. She has never failed me, never lied to me. When I asked her why my mom had left, she didn't invent pretty stories. She told me the truth, that sometimes adults make difficult decisions, and that she loved me enough to stay. Andrea returns to her seat, and the judge addresses me again. Mrs. Vance, your grandchildren have been very clear in their preferences. Is there anything else the court should know before making a decision? I look at the yellow envelope in my hands, and then I look at my 3 grandchildren. They have been brave in speaking their truth. Now it's my turn to be brave with mine. Yes, Your Honor, there's something else, something that will completely change the perspective of this case. I pull the last document from the envelope. It's a sheet I've folded and unfolded so many times that the crease lines are permanent. This is a document I found 2 years ago among the things Valerie abandoned in her apartment, a document she herself wrote and signed. Valerie turns pale as a ghost. Her lawyer leans toward her, but my daughter shakes her head repeatedly. What kind of document, Mrs. Vance? A voluntary renunciation of parental rights, Your Honor, written in my daughter's own hand, signed and dated 3 days after she left the children with me. Judge Theodore Mason stands up abruptly, his expression transforming from professional curiosity to absolute shock. A voluntary renunciation of parental rights? Mrs. Vance, are you sure about what you're saying? Completely sure, Your Honor. I extend the document towards the court clerk. This paper was among the things Valerie abandoned in her apartment. The landlady gave it to me along with photographs and other personal documents my daughter left behind. Valerie stumbles in her seat as if she's about to faint. Her lawyer, Mark Sullivan, takes the document with trembling hands, and his face loses all color as he reads it. This can't be real, he murmurs. Read it aloud, please, the judge orders. The lawyer clears his throat and begins to read in a choked voice. I, Valerie Vance, 26 years of age, hereby voluntarily relinquish all my rights as mother of Arthur Vance, 7 years old, Emily Vance, 5 years old, and Andrea Vance, 3 years old. I acknowledge that I do not have the emotional, economic, or psychological capacity to raise them adequately. The silence in the room is so profound that you can hear the agitated breathing of everyone present. My grandchildren look at each other with expressions of confusion and pain. "Continue," the judge says in a grave voice. "I fully authorize my mother, Eleanor Vance, to make all legal, medical, and educational decisions related to my children. I waive any right to visit them, contact them, or claim them in the future. This decision is definitive and irrevocable. Signed, Valerie Vance, dated October 15th, 2011. Valerie breaks into hysterical sobs. "I was crazy. I didn't know what I was writing. I was mentally ill." The judge raps his gavel repeatedly. "Order. Mrs. Vance, do you have witnesses that this document was written voluntarily by your daughter?" "Yes, Your Honor." The landlady of the building where Valerie lived, Mrs. Paula Sterling, can testify that my daughter asked her for paper and a pen to write an important letter 3 days after leaving the children. She can also confirm that Valerie was conscious and coherent during those days. Attorney Mark Sullivan whispers urgently to his client, but Valerie continues to sob uncontrollably. "Furthermore," I continue, "there's something else the court should know, something I discovered only 2 weeks ago that explains why my daughter returned exactly now." All eyes are fixed on me. I can feel the tension in the room intensify. "Your Honor, I hired the private investigator not only to learn about my daughter's recent movements, but also to fully understand her current situation. What we discovered is revealing." I pull a small folder from my purse. Valerie and her partner, Javier Dawson, are facing a severe financial crisis. 6 months ago, Javier lost his job. 4 months ago, they received an eviction notice from their home. 3 months ago, exactly when they learned about my brother's inheritance, they began procedures to obtain custody of my grandchildren. Valerie lifts her head, her eyes red from crying. "Mom, please, let me finish, daughter." My voice is firm but not cruel. The investigator also discovered that you and Javier have been living on loans and credit cards. You owe more than $30,000 in accumulated debt. The judge reviews the documents I've provided. "And you believe that your grandchildren's inheritance is the solution they're seeking for their financial problems?" "I don't believe it, Your Honor. I know it." I look directly at Valerie. "Because a week ago, my daughter called me on the phone for the first time in 13 years. The surprise in the room is palpable. Even my grandchildren look at me in astonishment because I hadn't told them about this call. "And what did she say in that call?" the judge asks. "She told me she had matured, that she had overcome her problems, and that she wanted to get her children back. When I asked her why after so long, she said she had been saving money to offer them a better life." I paused dramatically. Then I asked her about my brother's inheritance. There was a long silence, and then she said, "Mom, that money belongs to my children. I just want to make sure they receive it when the time is right." "And what did you reply?" I told her that her children already had access to that inheritance through me, their legal guardian, that the money was safe in a trust fund until each of them turned 21. It was then that her tone changed completely. Valerie covers her face with her hands, knowing what's coming. She told me that as their biological mother, she had more right to manage that inheritance than I did. She told me she had consulted with a lawyer and could legally fight for custody. She threatened me, Your Honor. The judge leans forward. "How did she threaten you?" "She told me that if I didn't voluntarily transfer custody and control of the inheritance, she would accuse me of kidnapping. She told me she had witnesses who could testify that I had intentionally alienated the children from her. She told me that a judge would always favor a biological mother over a grandmother." Arthur suddenly stands up from his seat. "Grandma, why didn't you tell us she threatened you?" "Because I didn't want you to worry more than necessary," I reply softly, "and because I knew the truth would come out at the right time." The judge raps his gavel. "Young man, please take your seat." Then he looks at me. "Mrs. Vance, do you have that phone conversation recorded?" "No, Your Honor, but I have something better." I smile slightly. After that call, my daughter sent me several text messages where she repeated her threats, messages that are saved on my phone and that I have printed for the court. I pull out the message printouts and hand them to the clerk. The judge reads them in silence, his expression growing more severe with each message. "Can you read some of these messages to the court?" the judge asks. I take the printouts and read in a clear voice. Message from July 18th. "Mom, think it over carefully. I'm the biological mother, and any judge will side with me. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." I continue. Message from July 20th. "I've been talking to my lawyer. He says what you did could be considered parental kidnapping. You could go to jail." And the last message, my voice grows firmer. From July 22nd. "Mom, if you give me custody voluntarily, we can reach an agreement on the inheritance. 50-50. You keep half for having taken care of them. I keep half because I'm their mother. But if you force me to go to trial, I get everything." The judge places the documents on his desk and looks directly at Valerie. "Mrs. Vance, do you confirm that you sent these messages?" Valerie sobs, unable to articulate a word. Her lawyer looks completely defeated. "Your Honor," I say softly, "I want to make it clear that I'm not seeking revenge against my daughter. I understand that she went through difficult times when she was young. I understand that early motherhood and mental health problems can lead to desperate decisions." I look at Valerie with sadness, but also with determination. But what I cannot accept is that after 13 years of total absence, after having formally relinquished her rights as a mother, after having formed a new family, and completely forgotten about these children, she now returns only because money is involved. "What do you request from the court?" the judge asks. "That my permanent legal guardianship over my minor grandchildren be confirmed, that my daughter's custody demand be completely rejected, and that a restraining order be issued preventing Valerie from approaching the children unless they, when they are of legal age, voluntarily decide to have contact with her." Valerie shouts from her seat, "You can't take my children away from me forever!" I turn to her with an expression that mixes pain and firmness. "Daughter, you yourself gave them up 13 years ago. I'm not taking anything from you. I'm just protecting what you abandoned." The judge declares a 30-minute recess to review all the documentation presented. The courtroom partially empties, but I remain seated in my place, holding my purse against my chest as if it were a protective shield. My grandchildren approach me, surrounding me with their arms in a silent embrace that speaks more than 1,000 words. "Grandma," Andrea whispers, "why did you never tell us she had given us up in writing?" "Because I wanted you to have the opportunity to form your own opinion about your mother when you were old enough to understand," I reply, stroking her hair. "I didn't want you to grow up with hatred in your hearts." Arthur squeezes my hand. "But you lied to us all these years when you told us maybe she would come back." "I didn't lie, my love. There was always the possibility that she would mature and return for the right reasons. I held on to that hope for a long time." I look to where Valerie is sitting with her lawyer, talking in desperate whispers. "But when she called me a week ago, I knew immediately that she hadn't returned for you. She had returned for the money." Emily sits next to me. "What's going to happen now, Grandma?" "I don't know, my child, but I know we've told the truth, and that's all we can do." During the recess, I watch Valerie slowly approach us. Her lawyer tries to stop her, but she ignores him. She walks with hesitant steps, as if each foot was a mountain to climb. "Mom," she says with a broken voice, "can we talk privately?" She begins, and her voice trembles like when she was a child and had done something wrong. "I know I made terrible mistakes, but I've changed. I've really changed." "Have you changed, Valerie, or do you just need money?" My question is direct, but not cruel. After so many years, I've earned the right to brutal honesty. She lowers her gaze. "Both are true. Yes, I need the money, but I've also missed my children all these years." "You've missed them?" My voice rises slightly. Valerie, you had 13 years to miss them. 13 years to call, to write, to send a postcard at Christmas. 13 years to ask how they were, if they needed anything, if they remembered you. I was scared, she whispers. I was scared they would hate me for abandoning them. Then why now? Why, after 13 years of fear, do you suddenly have the courage to fight for them in court? Valerie leans against the window, as if needing physical support to continue the conversation. Because Javier told me that if I didn't try to get my children and their inheritance back, he would leave me. He told me he couldn't stay with a woman who had given away $50,000. The brutal honesty of her confession catches me off guard. For a moment, I see the scared girl she once was, caught between impossible decisions. Then you haven't changed at all, I say with deep sadness. 13 years ago, you made a decision based on what a man demanded of you. Today you are here for the same reason. It's not that simple. Her voice rises, but she immediately looks around to make sure no one hears us. Mom, you don't understand the pressure I've lived under. Javier has supported me all these years. Without him, I have nothing. I don't have a job. I don't have my own home. I don't have savings. And what about your other child? The child you could raise because it was convenient for your relationship? Valerie stumbles as if I had slapped her. Paul is different. He was born within my marriage to Javier. He was part of our plans. Arthur, Emily, and Andrea were also your children. Valerie, they also deserved unconditional love. But I couldn't give them that, she explodes, tears streaming down her face. I was a kid when I had them. I didn't know how to be a mother. Every time Arthur cried, I cried too. Every time Emily had nightmares, I had panic attacks. I couldn't handle them. For the first time in this conversation, I feel a pang of compassion for my daughter. Then why didn't you ask me for help at that time? Why didn't you come to me and say, Mom, I can't do this alone? Because I was afraid you'd judge me. I was afraid you'd think I was a bad mother. Valerie, my voice softens. I would have helped you. We would have found a way to raise them together. But you chose to run away. You chose to abandon them completely. I know, she sobs. I know, and I've lived with that guilt all these years. But Mom, now I can offer them something better. With the inheritance, I can give them a life I could never give them before. With the inheritance, Valerie, are you listening to me? It's not about the money. It's about 13 years of absence. It's about you writing a renunciation of parental rights. It's about you forming another family and completely forgetting about them. Valerie straightens up, and for a moment, I see a flicker of the determination that characterized her when she was young. Mom, legally, I'm still their biological mother. That paper I wrote wasn't notarized. It wasn't presented before a judge. Technically, it doesn't have full legal validity. And there it is. The true Valerie emerges again, calculating and manipulative. So, this was never about getting your children back. This is about winning a legal case to access the money. It's about both things, she insists. Mom, we can reach an agreement. I'll take the children, but you can visit them whenever you want. We can share the responsibility of raising them, and about the inheritance, we can divide it fairly. You've spent money on them all these years. It's fair that you receive compensation. Compensation. The word comes out of my mouth like poison. Valerie, do you think I raised your children expecting financial reward? Do you think I took them to the doctor when they had a fever because I expected someone to pay me for it? Do you think I stayed up all night when they had nightmares because I expected to receive money in return? Stop. Just stop. Valerie covers her ears like a child who doesn't want to hear the truth. I'm not going to stop, Valerie, because this is what you need to hear. I didn't raise those children as an investment. I raised them because I love them, because they are my blood, because when you abandoned them, someone had to love them unconditionally. Valerie lowers her hands and looks at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It's the same look she had as a teenager when she realized she had made a serious mistake. Mom, she says in a very small voice, what do I have to do for you to forgive me? The question catches me off guard. For years I had imagined this moment. I had thought about what I would tell her if she ever asked for forgiveness. But now that I'm here, The words don't come easily. Valerie, forgiveness isn't something you negotiate. It's not something you get in exchange for doing the right things now. Forgiveness is something you give because you choose to free yourself from resentment. So do you forgive me? I look at my daughter, this 39-year-old woman who still seeks her mother's approval, and I feel a complex mixture of love, disappointment, sadness, and hope. I forgive you for being a scared child who didn't know how to be a mother. I forgive you for making desperate decisions when you felt overwhelmed. I forgive you for running away when the responsibility became too heavy. Valerie smiles with hope, but I continue. But I cannot forgive you for coming back only when money is involved. I cannot forgive you for threatening me with jail to get what you want, and I cannot allow you to hurt those children again. The smile disappears from her face. So there's nothing I can do? Yes, there is something you can do, I reply firmly. You can go back to your life, work on your personal problems, and when you have truly matured and changed, when you can offer genuine love without expecting anything in return, then perhaps your children will decide for themselves if they want to meet you. And the inheritance? The inheritance belongs to them, Valerie, and I will make sure they receive it when they are ready to manage it responsibly. A court officer appears in the hallway. The recess is over. The judge is ready to continue. As we walk back to the courtroom, Valerie takes my arm gently. Mom, one last question. If I withdraw the lawsuit now, would you allow me to see the children occasionally for supervised visits? I stop and look directly into her eyes. That decision isn't up to me, Valerie. It's up to them. If they want to meet you, I will respect their decision, but I won't pressure them to do so. We enter the courtroom where the judge is waiting for us, and I know that the next few minutes will determine the future of my family. Judge Theodore Mason takes his place on the bench, and the courtroom fills again with palpable attention. Valerie and her lawyer, Mark Sullivan, return to their table, but I can tell something has changed in her posture. She is more slumped, smaller, as if the conversation in the hallway had drained all her fighting energy. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge begins in a solemn voice, I have had time to review all the documentation presented, and I must say that this case presents very disturbing elements that go beyond a simple custody dispute. He looks directly at Valerie. Mrs. Vance, after examining the renunciation of parental rights written in your own hand, the text messages where you threaten your mother, and the documented history of abandonment for 13 years, I have some very serious questions to ask you. Valerie stands up tremblingly, leaning on the table to maintain her balance. Do you confirm that you voluntarily wrote the renunciation of parental rights dated October 15, 2011? Your Honor, Attorney Mark Sullivan intervenes. My client was going through a severe mental health crisis at that time. She cannot be held responsible for decisions made under those circumstances. Attorney Sullivan, the judge replies in a severe tone, I have reviewed the medical reports you presented as evidence of your client's depression. The documents show that she was discharged from psychiatric treatment 2 months before writing that renunciation. According to medical records, her doctor certified that she was mentally stable and posed no danger to herself or others. Valerie stumbles, and her lawyer helps her sit down. Furthermore, the judge continues, I have checked public records and found that Mrs. Valerie Vance legally married Mr. Javier Dawson on December 20th, 2011, just 2 months after writing the renunciation of parental rights. Can you explain how someone mentally incapable of making decisions about their children could simultaneously make the legal decision to marry? The silence in the courtroom is absolute. I can hear my own heart pounding as I await my daughter's answer. Your Honor, Valerie says with a broken voice, I just wanted to start over. I thought it would be better for everyone. Better for everyone, or better for you? The judge's question is direct and sharp. Valerie breaks into tears and cannot answer. The judge continues, Mrs. Vance, I have also reviewed the school records of your son, Paul, born in 2012. The documents show that you have been a present and active mother in his education. You have attended parent meetings, school events, and maintained a stable home for him for 11 years. This demonstrates that you did have the capacity to be a mother, but you chose to exercise that capacity only with the child who was convenient for you. Every word from the judge falls like a hammer on the coffin of Valerie's hopes. I watch her collapse in her chair, completely defeated. But most concerning of all, the judge says, raising the printed text messages, are these explicit threats you made to your mother. Threatening with false accusations of kidnapping is not only morally reprehensible, but constitutes extortion, a serious felony. Attorney Mark Sullivan stands up desperately. Your Honor, I request a recess to consult with my client about the possibility of withdrawing the lawsuit. Attorney Sullivan, the judge replies firmly, in light of the evidence presented, especially the threats of extortion, I have a legal obligation to refer this case to the district attorney's office to evaluate whether criminal charges should be filed against your client. Valerie shouts from her seat, "No, please! I just wanted my children back!" Mrs. Vance, the judge says in a severe voice, you did not want your children back. You wanted to recover the inheritance money. The evidence is overwhelmingly clear on that. He turns to me. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, do you wish to file charges for extortion against your daughter? The question catches me off guard. For weeks I had imagined this moment, but I never thought I would have to decide whether to send my own daughter to jail. I look at Valerie, who watches me with pleading eyes. Then I look at my grandchildren, who await my answer with tense expressions. Finally, I look into my heart and find an answer that surprises even me. Your Honor, I do not wish to file criminal charges against my daughter. Valerie sighs with relief, but I continue. However, I do request a restraining order prohibiting her from contacting my grandchildren or me for a minimum period of 5 years, unless through a legal representative, and with the prior approval of this court. The judge nods. That seems like a reasonable request. Anything else, Mrs. Vance? Yes, Your Honor. I request that it be established in the public record that Mrs. Valerie Vance voluntarily relinquished all her parental rights over Arthur, Emily, and Andrea Vance on October 15, 2011, and that any future attempt to claim custody or rights over these minors be considered frivolous and without legal merit. Granted, the judge says, making notes in his documents. Valerie stands up, swaying. Mom, please don't do this. Don't take my children away from me forever. I turn to her, and for the first time in this entire hearing, my voice comes out soft but unwavering. Valerie, I'm not taking anything from you. You let them go 13 years ago. You wrote that renunciation. You chose to form another family and forget about them. I'm just protecting what you abandoned. But they're my children, she sobs. No, I reply firmly. They are the children you had, but I am the one who raised them. I am the one who loves them unconditionally. I am the one who sacrificed my peace of mind, my health, and my money to give them a stable home. Arthur rises from his seat in the gallery. Your Honor, may I say something? The judge nods. Please approach. My grandson walks to the stand with the dignity of an adult man, although I see in his eyes the pain of the child he once was. Your Honor, I want it to be clear for the record that my sisters and I do not consider Valerie Vance our mother. She is the woman who gave us life, but our mother is Eleanor Vance, the woman who raised us, educated us, loved us, and never abandoned us. He turns to Valerie. And I want you to know, Valerie, that if you ever truly change in the future, if you can ever offer genuine love without expecting anything in return, if you can ever prove that you have truly matured, then perhaps we will consider getting to know you as a person. But you will never be our mother. That title has been earned by Grandma Eleanor. Valerie sobs uncontrollably, but Arthur is not finished. And about Uncle Arthur's inheritance, I want you to know that when we turn 21 and can freely dispose of that money, a portion will go to Grandma Eleanor because she deserves to be rewarded for all the sacrifices she made for us." Emily and Andrea rise from their seats and join their brother in front of the stand. "I also want to say something," Emily says with a clear voice. "Valerie, I don't hate you, but I don't know you either. To me, you're a stranger who shared some of her DNA with me. My real family is here with my grandma Eleanor and my siblings." Andrea, the youngest, looks Valerie directly in the eyes. "And I want you to know that if you had come back for love, if you had come back because you really missed us, maybe we could have built something, but you came back for money, and that tells us everything we need to know about who you really are." The judge gently taps his gavel. "By hereby, this court rules the following. The permanent legal guardianship of Mrs. Eleanor Vance over minors. Emily Vance and Andrea Vance is confirmed. A 5-year restraining order is established against Mrs. Valerie Vance. The custody demand filed by Mrs. Valerie Vance is declared null and void, and she is prohibited from filing similar lawsuits in the future without substantial new evidence of a change in circumstances." Valerie collapses completely, held up only by her lawyer. "Mom," she whispers, "will you ever be able to completely forgive me?" I walk towards her slowly, feeling the weight of all these years on my shoulders. When I reach her side, I place my hand on her tear-streaked cheek. "Valerie, I forgave you a long time ago, but forgiveness doesn't mean I can allow you to hurt these children again. They have suffered enough." "What am I going to do now?" she asks in a lost little girl's voice. "You're going to go back home. You're going to take care of the child you have. You're going to work on yourself, on being a better person. And perhaps someday in the future, when you have truly changed, my grandchildren will decide for themselves if they want to meet you." "And if Javier leaves me because I didn't get the money?" I sigh deeply. "Then perhaps it's time you learn to stand on your own 2 feet, daughter. Perhaps it's time you stop basing your decisions on what men expect from you." The judge stands, indicating that the hearing is over. This court is closed. As we leave the courtroom, I feel a strange mix of triumph and sadness. I won the legal battle, but I lost hope that my daughter had returned for the right reasons. But when my grandchildren surround me with their arms in the courthouse hallway, I know I made the right decisions. Sometimes love means protecting those you love, even if it hurts those you also love. 3 months after the trial, I'm sitting in my small kitchen, watching Andrea practice guitar for her school recital. The evening light streams through the window and illuminates her concentrated face, so much like mine when I was her age. Arthur is in college, studying engineering on a full scholarship we secured after much effort. Emily works part-time at a bookstore while finishing high school. Life has found its rhythm again, but differently, more peacefully. There's no longer that constant tension of wondering if someone will come to take the children. There are no more sleepless nights thinking about legal demands. The restraining order has given us the peace we needed. The doorbell rings and I go to open it. It's Mrs. Alma, my neighbor and the judge's sister, bringing a tray of freshly made tamales. "Eleanor, look what I brought you," she says with her maternal smile. "I know you've been working hard, and I thought these would do you good." "Thanks, Alma. Come in. Let's have some coffee." As we prepare the coffee, Alma looks at me with that expression I know well. She has something to say, but doesn't know how to begin. "Just say it, Alma. I've known you for 40 years. "It's about Valerie," she says finally. "My brother Theodore told me she's been asking for information on how to appeal the decision." I feel a knot in my stomach, but I take a deep breath. "And what did they tell her?" "That she has no legal grounds to appeal, that the renunciation of parental rights she wrote is valid, especially considering her subsequent behavior. But Eleanor, there's something else. Javier left her last week. He took their son, Paul, and told her he couldn't stay with a woman who had lost $150,000 for being stupid." The news hits me like a slap. Despite everything Valerie did to me, she's still my daughter, and it hurts to know she's suffering. "Where is she living now?" "In a small apartment near downtown. She's working cleaning offices at night. Theodore says she looks terrible, very thin, very sad. Andrea stops playing guitar and approaches us. Are you talking about my biological mom? Yes, my love, I reply honestly. It seems she's going through a difficult time. Andrea sits next to me. Do you feel bad for her, Grandma? The question takes me by surprise with its maturity. Yes, I feel bad. Despite everything that happened, she's still my daughter. I don't like knowing she's suffering. But that doesn't mean we did anything wrong by defending ourselves, right? I smile and caress her hair. No, my love. Sometimes in life we have to make difficult decisions. You can feel compassion for someone and at the same time protect yourself from them. Alma interrupts us gently. Eleanor, there's something else you should know. Valerie has been asking about the children. She hasn't violated the restraining order, but she's been asking neighbors how they are, if they're doing well in school, if they need anything. Do you think she's planning something? I ask with concern. I don't know, but Theodore wanted you to know, just in case. That night, after Andrea goes to sleep, I stay awake thinking about Valerie. I imagine her alone in that small apartment, without her partner, without her son, without a stable job. I imagine her regret, her loneliness, her desperation. The next day, I make a decision that surprises even me. I go to the supermarket and buy a week's worth of food: rice, beans, chicken, vegetables, bread, milk. I pack it all into bags and drive to the address Alma had given me. The building is old and run down. I climb the stairs to the 3rd floor and knock on the door of apartment 3B. I hear slow footsteps and then Valerie's voice through the door. Who is it? It's me, Valerie, your mom. There's a long silence, then the sound of bolts opening. The door opens and I see my daughter. Alma was right. She looks terrible. She has lost a lot of weight. She has deep dark circles under her eyes, and her clothes are clean but very worn. Mom, she whispers, as if she can't believe I'm there. What? What are you doing here? I brought you some things, I say, lifting the bags. May I come in? She steps aside, and I enter the apartment. It's small but clean. An old sofa, a kitchen table with 2 chairs, a small television. On the table are stacked unpaid bills. Why? She asks, as I put the bags in the kitchen. Because you're my daughter, I reply simply. Because despite everything that happened, I can't see you go hungry. Valerie collapses on the sofa and breaks into tears. Mom, I lost everything. Javier took Paul. He told me I was a loser, that I had had the opportunity to get easy money and had ruined it by being sentimental. I sit next to her. And what did you tell him? Nothing. I didn't say anything because I knew he was right. I'm a loser. I lost my first children. I lost the inheritance. I lost Paul. I lost my house. Valerie, I say in a soft but firm voice, you didn't lose your first children. You abandoned them. There's a difference. She looks at me with eyes swollen from crying. You're always going to remind me of my mistakes. I'm not going to remind you, but I'm also not going to let you rewrite history. If you really want to change, you have to start by accepting the truth of what you did. And what truth is that? I stand up and walk to the window overlooking the street. That you had 3 beautiful children and you abandoned them because they weren't convenient for your new relationship. That you formed another family and completely forgot about them for 13 years. That you only came back when money was involved. I know all that, she explodes. I live with that guilt every day. I turn to her. Guilt is useless, Valerie. Guilt is disguised self-pity. What is useful is genuine repentance and a real desire to change. And how do you know if my repentance is genuine? Because if it were genuine, you wouldn't have come back asking for custody. You would have come back asking for forgiveness. You would have come back asking how you could help, not what you could get. Valerie remains silent for a long time. Finally, she asks, Is there any way I can ever meet my children again? Maybe, I reply. But it would have to be on their terms when they are ready, if they ever are. And in the meantime, work on yourself, get psychological help, find a stable job, learn to live alone without depending on a man. become the woman you would have wanted their mother to be. I walk towards the door. The food will last you a week. After that, you'll have to manage on your own. Will you visit me again? She asks in a small voice. I don't know, Valerie. That depends on you, on the decisions you make from now on. I leave the apartment feeling strange. I don't know if I did the right thing by coming here, but I know I couldn't let my daughter go hungry no matter what she had done. When I get home, Arthur is in the kitchen studying. He looks up when I enter. Grandma, where were you? I was looking for you. I went to see your biological mom, I tell him honestly. His expression changes immediately. Why? Because she's hungry and she's still my daughter. Arthur closes his books and looks at me seriously. Grandma, I hope that doesn't mean you're going to let her back into our lives. No, my love. It means I'm capable of feeling compassion without compromising our safety. He nods slowly. Do you think she'll ever really change? I don't know, I reply honestly. But if she does, it will be because she decided to change, not because we pressured her or rescued her. That night, as I prepare for bed, I think about the lessons this experience has taught us. Sometimes the truest love is the one that sets boundaries. Sometimes protecting those you love means saying no to those you also love. And sometimes, just sometimes, justice isn't revenge. Justice is simply allowing the natural consequences of someone's decisions to manifest while you choose love over resentment. 1 year after the trial, I'm sitting in my garden watching the tomatoes I planted in spring grow. Arthur graduated with honors from college and got a job at an engineering firm. Emily was accepted into college with a partial scholarship. Andrea, now 17, leads her school's band. Uncle Arthur's inheritance remains untouched in their trust accounts, waiting for each of them to turn 21. But most importantly, my grandchildren have flourished without the constant shadow of fear of abandonment. Mrs. Alma arrives with news. Eleanor, I have to tell you something about Valerie. What happened now? I ask, mentally preparing myself. She enrolled in psychological therapy. She's been attending religiously for 6 months. Theodore told me she's paying for the sessions herself with her cleaning job. The news genuinely surprises me. And there's more. She got a day job as a receptionist at a medical clinic. She no longer cleans offices at night. She looks better, more stable. Has she asked about the children? No. In fact, they told her you had visited her, and she replied that her mom had already done enough for her, that now it was her turn to prove she could change without help. I feel strangely proud of my daughter for the first time in years. That afternoon, Andrea comes home from school with a thoughtful expression. Grandma, can I ask you something? Always, my love. Do you think I'll ever want to acknowledge my biological mom? The question doesn't surprise me. I knew this moment would eventually come. I don't know, Andrea. It's a decision only you can make when you're ready. Would you be upset if someday I decided to meet her? No, my love. I would be proud of you for making your own decisions as a responsible adult. And if I decided never to meet her, I would be proud of that too. The decision is completely yours. That night, as I prepare dinner, I reflect on everything we've lived through. For years, I held resentment towards Valerie, resentment for leaving me with a responsibility that wasn't mine, resentment for forgetting about her children, resentment for coming back only for money. But now, after all this time, I realize that resentment was a chain that tied both her and me. When I let go of it, I freed myself. Last week, Emily turned 19. During the celebration, she told me something that filled my heart. Grandma, thank you for saving us. But more than that, thank you for teaching us that true love doesn't abandon. Arthur, now 21, has full access to his inheritance. The first thing he did was set aside $10,000 for me. For everything you spent on us all these years, he told me. I accepted the money, not because I needed it, but because it was important for him to give it to me. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Valerie had come back for the right reasons, if she had come asking for forgiveness instead of demanding custody, if she had shown genuine repentance instead of legal threats. Maybe we would have found a way to coexist. Maybe we would have been able to build something resembling an extended family. Maybe my grandchildren would have had the opportunity to meet their biological mother under healthy circumstances. But life isn't about maybes. It's about the decisions we make with the information we have at the moment we have it. I chose to protect 3 abandoned children. I chose to love them unconditionally when their own mother couldn't. I chose to sacrifice my peace of mind and my resources to give them stability. And when it came time to defend them, I chose to fight for them with all my strength. I regret none of those decisions. Today, as I watch Andrea practice guitar, Emily study for her college exams, and Arthur plan his professional future, I know I made the right decisions. They are responsible, empathetic, hardworking adults. They are good people who contribute positively to the world. They are living proof that unconditional love and firm boundaries can coexist. Sometimes people ask me if I hate Valerie for what she did. The answer is no. I don't hate her, but I don't excuse her either. I understand she was young when she had her children. I understand that motherhood can be overwhelming. I understand that we all make mistakes, but I also understand that some mistakes have permanent consequences. And choosing to abandon your children isn't a mistake. It's a decision that defines who you are as a person. Valerie chose her new life over her children. I chose those children over my comfort. We both live with the consequences of our decisions. The difference is that I can sleep peacefully at night, knowing that I always put the children's well-being first. She will have to live forever, knowing that she abandoned them when they needed her most. If there's one lesson in all this, it's that justice doesn't always come in the form of punishment. Sometimes justice is simply each person receiving exactly what their actions deserve. I deserve the unconditional love of my grandchildren because I gave them unconditional love for 13 years. Valerie deserves the absence of that love because she chose to be absent for 13 years. It's not revenge. It's natural consequence. And perhaps if she has truly changed, if she is truly working on herself, someday my grandchildren will decide to give her a chance. But it will be their decision, on their terms, when they are ready. In the meantime, I will continue to be what I have always been, their grandmother, their protector, their safe home, their unconditional love, because that's how true love works. It doesn't abandon, it doesn't negotiate, it doesn't set conditions. It simply is. Constant like the dawn, strong like the roots of an old tree, silent like a prayer that never ends. And that, at the end of the day, is enough. Did you like my story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.